Welcome to Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast with Dan Norton and David Persin.
Hello everyone, welcome back. It's a day late, but it's Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast with myself, Dan, and David Persin. David, how has your week been?
Hi, Dan. Great week. Thanks for asking, buddy. I think I should tell everybody right now exactly what's going on. I know that sometimes you're inclined to hide the truth. I'm not going to do that with our viewers, Dan, our fan base, you being the celebrity that you are. So Dan, it's 111 in Vegas, and I'm sitting here right
Ouch.
now. And I'm taking one for the team just to see if I can get through a Koffee Talks at 111 degrees in my backyard. It's an experiment, Dan. If it doesn't work, probably not going to be a very long video. Dan, I'd also like to explain to the world what you forced me to do today. You told me from the beginning, you got on earlier today and you started messaging me and, trying to hype me up and say, David, we're not doing the end of the podcast like we normally do. We're not doing the Ferris Bueller's Day Off thing. Because all I want to do, David, is I want to analyze the analytics of the video. And I want to talk all about myself and only myself because I went to NAIC this weekend in Columbus, Ohio, the town in which you live. Congratulations, Dan. And you want to put the entire video about you and that. And so, I mentioned that to my wife, and she goes, then why don't you just let him do the darn video? Do the darn video. You don't need to be on there. And then I thought to myself that you once told me several weeks ago, like, I'm a co-host of the podcast.
You are.
So I'm going to stay on the video with you, Dan, while you talk all about NAIC.
Yep.
We're not going to do any segments at the end. And that's all I got to say, Dan. Just roll right into it. It's good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, as David said, this is going to be basically the NAIC special episode. We'll still go through the comments, but then a lot of stuff is going to be out. NAIC and, a bit about previous national stuff like that. But let's get straight into these comments and we'll get through those so that we can get on with that. All right, first comment we got last week was from Never Cold 808. Said, these podcasts are way funnier than I ever expected. Great to have some laughs while learning about the hobby. Well, I am very, very glad that some people are finding these very funny. Steve Jackson says, Wait.
Give me 1 second.
All
Don't
right.
just run right through. I've got something very important to say to that.
Okay, you say something to that.
It's no problem. I might not have heard. I couldn't really hear when you ended because sometimes
Excellent.
your video goes in or out. I'm doing the best I can. But if you'd like to make the podcast even funnier, just turn down the volume completely and just look at Dan and my faces. Okay, Steve Jackson, move on.
Steve Jackson says, more Dave talks, please. I don't know how much more he wants because you talk enough. You definitely get enough talking in.
Xing that box. Nice job,
All right.
Dan.
Shadowless Jack says, awesome job. As always, friends, this show brings me very much joy. Very much appreciate you both. He says, Dave, I found Dan's Shadowless base story quite thrilling. Had me on the edge of my seat, which I'm choosing to read as being very sarcastic rather than a sincere comment.
I'm not sure about that. And I'm actually choosing to read it the other way, especially when you may point out Lamar's comment later as well. And what I'm going to say, Dan, is that is the reason that I decided to make myself subservient to you today and follow directly from your lead and adhere to your direction and not argue with you about the end segments because I felt people sided with you on the Shadowless comments from last week on the Shadowless story. So, so Dan, I'm going with you on that one. My sincere apologies, buddy. I just didn't understand the excitement of the whole thing.
Okay. Professor Birch says, 100% agree with Uncle Dave on funnel cakes, Dan. You've got to try one. Next time,
funnel cakes.
Next time the state fair is around in Ohio, I'm sure I'll go and try a funnel cake.
You better. I want to see a video so you don't just tell me you did and you didn't actually do it.
I will make sure I film myself eating a funnel cake.
Okay.
Graham says, Graham has a long username. Graham says, I just found a case of movie promos. A guy found them when his father-in-law passed away. He owned a movie theater. I was able to purchase the case after he got burned out trying to sell them himself. It had 1,000 copies left. Well, I guess, Graham, make sure you try and move some of those inserts and just make sure you don't have any hidden gems snuck away in there with those upside-down stamps. You never know.
And tell us what you do. We're dying to know. I mean, you can't just introduce it. I can't stand people when they come to people, and this isn't you, by the way, Graham, whatever. But a lot of people say, I've got some issues in my life, help me with it. And then they come to people and they ask for help, and they never tell them what the final outcome is. So tell us what you're doing. Are you going to open them? Are you going to not open them? Are you going to try to sift through the cards? And if you do that, show us the front packs. Are they Muse or are those yellow ones that don't have a character on the front so we can enhance the database of information in case you do come across some of these upside down inverted stamps?
There you go. David has requests for Graham.
Yes.
Next up, we have Pokemon Matt, our friend Matty. The reason David doesn't like the Shadowless story is because he doesn't know what Shadowless is. Entirely possible. He says, philosophically, the glass is only as full as the amount you put in it. I don't remember what we said last week that could have prompted that comment, but he said that.
No, I know Maddie, and he does a lot of drinking, so that would make sense for what he's talking about.
He said it would be interesting to hear you guys talk about the distributor promos. We definitely will at some point. It will not be on this episode because we have got a lot to talk about for NAIC, but that will be on an episode at some point in the future. He says, did you know that Dan was related to both Edward and Graham Norton? That is not true, and also Graham Norton's name isn't even Graham Norton. He is not... Norton is only a stage name for him, so I definitely wouldn't be related to him, but I'm not related to Edward Norton either. I definitely would have mentioned that by now. Craig is back, one of our regular listeners. Could the possible different codes on the e-reader cards relate to different stats on the Pokemon once they're scanned into the games? So I don't believe so. I believe that the e-reader data on those cards is exactly the same. I think the only cards that have different versions with different e-reader data are a couple of cards from Shadowless. Hey, it's Future Dan here, editing Dan. For some reason I said Shadowless in that sentence. I think I was trying to say Skyridge, but it's not Skyridge either. It's Aquapolis. I'll be making a couple of appearances during today. I don't know what was going through my head when we filmed this. In fact, I do. But you'll find out in the Venusaur story in a bit. Which actually have the letter A or B printed after the collector number. I don't believe there's any difference in the data on those cards.
And I was playing with those sets, and I'm not going to talk about it today because I've been disallowed from Dan to talk about anything other than just related to NAIC. But I was playing with those codes this past weekend, trying to get the collection up to speed, and noticed that there is a lot of duplication in some of the segments of the codes, which would bode for them not being character related as well.
Yeah, a lot of people have looked into a lot of different options over the years, and no one's come up with anything conclusive.
Yeah.
Philip says, Dan's story was great, and David scolding Dan over the story was even better.
One of the only reasons I remain a co-host with you, buddy. Thank you for allowing me to do that every once in a while or several times an episode.
Pokémon says, David, don't you dare even think about stopping this podcast. I can't even imagine how much Dan would miss you.
That's, you know what? It's sort of like The Odd Couple, which all of you are too young to know, but that's kind of what Dan and I are. It's a good old show. You could watch it. And the only thing that might stop me is heat stroke from sitting out here in 111-degree weather. Yeah.
I'd certainly miss the watch hours that my channel is now getting.
Good point.
Alex Bajira says, oh snap, the random number generator gods were kind to me today. Alex was the winner of last week's giveaway. He's looking forward to receiving the giveaway. I appreciate your generosity. Entertaining episode once again.
And Alex, I did send your card. There's no proof that I sent it in case you don't receive it. But I do want you to know that 100% sure I did send it. And I hope you enjoy it if you ever were to actually receive it, just in case it didn't get there for a particular reason.
I mean, hopefully it does. I'm sure we'll hear from Alex in some point over the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Okay.
Pokey Power Up said, I grade with PSA more than CGC, but I think these changes will be positive long-term for CGC. That is the thing we talked about recently, was CGC changing its label. I do agree that I think for the company, the changes long-term will be positive. I think the major downsides are going to come from the people who, went heavy on them when they first started and who've got all these blue labels. Too Slowbro says, thanks again, fellas, for the great content and another opportunity to potentially win a giveaway. Even the lowest value item in your collection far exceeds anything I own, David. I mean, I guess if we just count your stuff as sets as opposed to remembering that you do own all of the commons and stuff, then you have mostly high-value stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not interested in parting with the high-value stuff. So really, if people that do win the giveaway can really reset their expectations towards commons, I think they're going to be a lot happier when they ultimately receive a gift.
I mean, I'm sure once if Alex receives his one, we'll start to know what sort of stuff you've sent out. And
Alex, don't tell anybody, don't put it in the comments or you won't be eligible for further giveaways. Let me say one last thing about this. There's not many people that are in these giveaways, so I encourage all of you to participate because your chances of winning are actually pretty high at this point in time. Jump into the DMs and let's see you win something that may or may not be worth a dime, and I may or may not actually send it out. Sorry.
Well, just a couple more comments, and then you can find out how to enter that.
Yes, good, Dan. Push us along.
Yeah. Next comment comes from CyberX Collection. He says, you got me on Shadowless until you said 2010. Still a cool story. Keep on the great podcast, guys. I'm loving these.
So CyberX Collection may have been sort of intermediate feeling about whether or not you or I was right about that story, okay?
Potentially.
So yes, exactly. So, and I really like someone that stays to the middle because the whole political climate of the country is killing me right now.
You mention politics so often for someone who claims not to care about it.
I don't care about it at all, but I want people to know that I'm not going to get into it. If you're going to try to fight me on this, Dan, I swear to God, if I knew how to hang up this podcast right now, I'd hang up the phone. Wait, I'm not on the phone. I don't have a clue how to do anything like that.
All right. Potato Pack says Dave's humor is drier than the Nevada desert. It should be a tourist attraction.
Okay, what is the guy's name?
Potato Pack.
Potato Pack?
Yeah, like I said, YouTube shows the usernames now rather than your display name.
All right, well, Potato Pack, don't tell me about my dry humor. Who named you Potato Pack, okay? I mean, I've heard of potato sack, like a sack race or something, maybe potato salad, potato head, but Potato Pack? What's going on, buddy? If you'd like to let us know why you chose to name yourself, that name, then maybe I can use my dry humor to obliterate you in the future. Let me know.
Final comment for the week is from Lamar. Says, I think the big thing that detracts people from the new labels with CGC is that it makes them seem like a sports card slab, not a Pokemon card slab. I would say that I don't think matters that much because you have to remember that PSA, one of the more popular grading companies within Pokemon, their slabs were designed originally to be sports card slabs. They started out just as sports, long before Pokemon was even a thing, and they have the similar slabs too. It says if you're working on a set, there will be half and half in your collection now. That I do think is the much bigger issue for the people who are already here. It says that maybe Rusty can help send cards into CGC. I don't know if that's a service that Rusty offers. I would check Rusty's website, Instagram and stuff. I'm sure he will make it known if he is middlemanning cards going in. Unless that was directly just for you, David, then you can probably contact Rusty easy enough. Lamar finishes saying, I love that there are these code variants. I thought that the 900 variants was for the prize packs. We're going to get there with the prize packs after a couple of sets, I would think. But yes, the code cards are definitely something. Anyway, David, you can now give your thoughts on that comment.
Yeah, I do. From my recollection, I think that Rusty does do some middling, so that's always a good suggestion. And I think, Lamar, that Dan, he didn't mean to outright just, castigate you for your comments on the CGC thing and the sports card looking stuff. We respect your opinion very much. I obviously respect it more than Dan's, but Dan's supposed to be the guy that knows more on the podcast. So let's let him have his opinion, and you and I can talk offline about it later. As far as the prize packs, what I'd like to say about that is, what is the story with Bulbapedia? And Dan, I'm asking you a question. Our viewers want to know. So, this whole concept, I want to talk about Bulbapedia, where folks are supposed to go out there. I guess it's comparable, parallel, whatever, to Wikipedia for Pokemon cards. Who has the time? Who takes the time and effort to put this data in? Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's wrong. Sometimes it's completely wrong. Tell me, Dan, what is the deal with all that? Because this is a price pack thing we're trying to figure out. And you and I are well aware that there's data out there that is completely incorrect at this point in time. Not that we don't give our thanks to whoever put it out there, but is that just someone that has no life, Dan? And they're just like, what is going on, Dan? Tell me.
Well, I would say, I think the data and the lists and stuff that are out there, it's not, I wouldn't call it outright wrong. I would say a lot of it is incomplete. I don't think anyone's claiming that certain cards exist when they don't.
Dan, there are things that are incorrect as well as incomplete. I've had some of my sources check it, okay? And that's okay. Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying is we know some is incomplete, but we also know some is incorrect. If you'd like to get into that sometime, we're going to talk about that later too, because I've got some issues with you today. I'm a little hyper, and you just better put up with everything, okay? Well, go ahead and talk to me.
I was meaning mainly about the prize pack stuff. I know there is some stuff on Bulbapedia that's incorrect, which I have tried to work with Nathan in the past to get it corrected. I think a lot of the problem came with Nathan stopped working for Bulbapedia for a couple of years and just recently came back to it. So there's a bit more incorrect stuff that needs fixing. But Nathan...
So wait a minute, because now you've opened something up I was not aware of. If Nathan, when you said Nathan worked for Bulbapedia, was he paid to put those entries in? Was that a job he had?
It wasn't a paid position, I don't believe, but he was like the head of TCG for Bulbapedia. Like for the admin team, he was on the admin team and did stuff mainly with the TCG, but then he stopped doing it for a couple of years.
Why would he do that? Why would someone want to interject their time in a volunteer fashion with no compensation being provided for it?
I don't know, the love of the hobby or something? Trying to help people?
Dan, I don't know, man. Maybe there is a compensation because I never even thought about that. Now that you said it, and the reason I say is because when I'm on a Bulbapedia page, there is 8,257 ads going on in the background. I think I'm pretty sure they are, Dan.
Yeah, they had to keep increasing the ads because of the. It's a horrible cycle. I don't think any of them make any money from Bulbapedia. The ads just pay for like the hosting costs and stuff, and the pay for the servers for the traffic for the website. And it was just as more traffic came to the website, they had to put more ads and stuff on it to cover the extra costs. And as more people came, it just became a awful cycle. But yeah, they are very ad heavy now, which kind of sucks.
All right. I just someday try to figure out, Dan, why anybody wants to give their whole life for something they don't have any potential benefit for other than, helping sick children get better. I don't know. Okay.
I don't know what you think I've done for Pokemon over the past 12 years or what I've gotten out of it. Because
give me more, because there's got somewhere in there's a backhanded slap to my head, like a passive aggressive comment. Please tell me what you're saying. What have you given? Are you saying you volunteered all your time with nothing, but what?
I mean, you buy me things. You give me stuff for helping you with my time.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean but the Pokemon community in general, I definitely have helped out a lot, and I've definitely done a lot without getting or without expecting stuff in return, just for the sake of helping people and for the sake of helping out with the hobby. And then we all know where that got me, because of people who have the other mentality of, I need to be paid $1 million a year in order to even look at you.
Yeah, I guess I get that. That makes sense. I think the differentiating factor, and you got to remember my law school background, Dan, teaches me that facts are very specific to every circumstance, is that you can choose and select when you do or don't help people, whereas a Bulbapedia obligation is so, massive and so overwhelming and is so, detailed with so many sets and so many years to go back, that it just, to me, is it's almost like a full-time job. That's all I'm really saying about it, not the
it is
volunteer part.
It does still work in the same way that, a Wikipedia does, in which anyone can go on and edit Bulbapedia and they can put the information in. It's just there are admins in the background to check it over.
I see.
So I don't know how much of it Nathan is specifically all putting in himself and how much of it he's just verifying when people put it in.
Okay, no problem, Dan. Move right on. I'm sorry to take
let's move right on. We're done with the comments. So why don't you announce...
We're going to add the other two, right?
Okay, yes. You had a comment you wanted to mention that was on a previous video or something like that.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I went back and looked at some of the other videos, because a lot of times I can't sleep at night, and I sleep alone when my wife and I are fighting, so it's just a good time to catch up. So one of the comments was from Marston. I'll read it. It says, "Hey guys, this is my favorite podcast right now. I know you guys are wondering how to improve. The only thing I'd like to have is 0 cuts in the video. I love you guys either way. You both are doing something unique in a culture of same." So what I want to say about that is, I do try to encourage Dan a lot not to cut some of the videos and in the editing process, but I do know why he does it. He does it because, there's some delays, and he doesn't want anybody to sit there and feel like, the thing is longer than it needs to be. But I also do encourage Dan to hang on to the awkward silences when it's just between us, because I think it's kind of funny, actually. So I do appreciate the comment from that perspective. Dan, anything on your end?
Yeah, they don't want it uncut. Like if I said I was going to release a podcast completely uncut, that is a threat rather than something like a prize for you. No one needs to see that, because I will tell you, when I'm cutting stuff, I'm not cutting any conversation. I'm not cutting any stories. You're not losing out on hearing anything. The only things you're losing out on hearing are a couple of seconds of silence if we're on a bit of a delay, or David running around for 5 minutes trying to find his laptop charger, or if I've had to mute when the wind is really bad for Dave, or if I'm clicking my mouse. I will actually tell people I bought a new mouse this week. Listen to that. barely hear it, and it probably will not show up on the audio. So I saved myself a lot of trouble. And there's probably 2 or 3 people who will like, thank God, and everyone's like, we didn't notice. But I can promise you do not want to hear this unedited. I edit it for a reason.
All right, as the wind picks up and I'm about to be blown away, hopefully anybody... Let me talk super loud out there. I don't want you to miss anything, Dan. I do agree with Dan. I think he does a good job editing. A few little more timids of a awkward silence would be good, but all the rest is done for your benefit, Dan. Nice job. Here's the second comment. It's from at MARCOD9129. Like you said, they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
Marcode 9129. Very interesting conversation. Since I have 95 to 98% complete master sets of every EX set, and I've been wondering how to price them, mine aren't completely mint condition though. So this was a comment, I think, on maybe one of the very first videos, the podcast that we did, Koffee Talks. And so I want to ask Marcode 9129, add another comment this week whenever you watch this and tell us, did you catch up to our latest video last week about the 900 variants on the different code cards on the in the EX sets? Did that alter you? Were you collecting those? Are those something you're now going to go after regarding the master sets now that you may or may not have already known that or not? So curious to hear about that. Dan?
Yep, would like to hear another comment on that. Like I say, I think that was on the very first video. That one, I still get the notifications and get all the comments, but I think he did comment that one on the first video. So if they're working to catch up still, then it might be a couple of weeks before they get to this one, but we'll see.
Okay. Dan, I know you've got other things you want to do. A couple things real quick on my side. I'm going real quick because we're only at 21 minutes, and that's super good to get through the comments at that time. It would have been a lot less time if I'd have not talked so much about the Bulbapedia. Sorry. My fault, folks. Blame me. Don't blame Dan, because the guy's got a lot of weight on his shoulders right now. He's got too many irons in the fire, and I know that things are not easy at home. So here's the next thing. What I want to say is I told you guys I was going to show you my Father's Day gifts, and I did show you that last week in the picture I took when I posted the video. So I'm not going to do that today. Thanks for listening.
Good.
And I'm going to talk about Father's Day or Mother's Day with respect to proximity to your birthdays. Here's what happened in 30 seconds or less. Father's Day was about June 18th. My birthday was June 28th. Thanks for the happy birthday, guys. I turned 62 last week. And for Father's Day, I had the whole family over. Everybody was nice, got a bunch of nice gifts, a lot of nice, beautiful cards and stuff. And then fast forward 10 days, I didn't hear from anybody, see from anybody. The nicest thing was I got a text from one of my 23 kids that said, "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you." Why? Why is that happening? Because of the proximity? Because we got tired of honoring Dad on Father's Day only 10 days before? Do any of you out there have something like that going on where your birthday is very close to another holiday and they just forget about you? And what's more important, guys? Is it Father's Day or my birthday? Everybody I talk to says it should be your birthday. That should be the crown jewel of your life as far as what you're going to be honored with. So I just had to put it out there. And I'm not a little disappointed. I'm extremely disappointed. But it can happen. And what about if you're born on leap year? What does that mean, that you're born on February 29th? So every 4 years you get to celebrate, but someone told me you celebrate the 28th or March 1st on the other year, years that is not your actual birthday. Do we just forget about them because it's not the same day? I don't know. I had to rant a little bit. Thanks for listening. Dan, I'm done with my stuff for right now. Tell the world about the Magic One ring card real quick and then move on to what else you want to say.
Well, let me just quickly reply to your comment that you just gave there.
Oh, good. You got one. Good. Thank you.
Because my birthday is December 20th, so mine's very, very close to Christmas.
Yes.
So I've experienced stuff like that. And I'll say my dad's is the 15th of December as well, and my uncle's birthday was on Christmas Day, so we had a lot of birthdays right after each other in the family there. And I will also point out, my mum was born on a leap year, but she was born February 28th. So she was a couple of hours away from being a leap year baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do I have any point at all, Dan? Can you see why sometimes people might not get the real deserved rewards that they might choose to expect or want, versus somebody that, has a birthday in March and a holiday in June or something?
I can understand that, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the...
let's not spend too much time on this. The one ring card, yes, we talked about that one. The one of one serialized Magic card where stores and stuff were offering up to 2 million, I think the offers went for. It did get opened. It was found in Toronto, Canada, by... a local game store said that they had a connection to it, but it turned out it was a cousin of one of their regulars or something opened it. It was graded by PSA, who... interestingly, we're one of the only companies not to have made some sort of big public offer of, you know, flying them out or doing whatever. I'm sure they did something behind the scenes, because there's no way you're putting the One Ring card just in the mail to PSA, and I'm assuming PSA would have covered the guy's costs to get him down there. What we've been told is that the person who opened it has completely remained anonymous. I believe it is a guy from what's been said. I'm just going by that. But there's an email address been set up if you have genuine offers on the One Ring. And it's an email address that belongs to some company within that area, or some legal representation the person got, and you go through that legal representation, actually make offers on the ring. So it looks like the owner is not just, you know, straight up accepting any of these offers from like DA Card World or whoever offered stuff.
I'm going to stay out of it, Dan, but thanks for letting me know the address is there just in case I change my mind.
Okay. Right, well, yep, that was it. So at the end of the comments, David, why don't you announce the winner of the giveaway for last week and how it went at your giveaway for this week?
Okay, so the winner last week, and what I want to tell you before I announce the winner is get in this. You guys are crazy if you're not getting in this. There's not that many people participating, so week after week, your chances are getting stronger and stronger if I eliminate someone that's already won, but I'm really not doing that. But anyways, there's, like I said, get involved. You have to say who's the winner. CyberX Collection at CyberX Collection was the winner this week. So wait, actually you can't wait because I don't even have your address yet. So give me your address through Instagram, send it to me. You've already climbed into my DMs. And then for the rest of you that would like to participate next week, what you have to do is you have to listen to the podcast. You have to know what the number is. You have to Instagram me at theperson1. I'm supposed to say it, Dan said. I can't just not let you know what it is. With the number, which this week I'm going to go with the last number in the top series, which is 151. Who is that? Do we even know what that character is, Dan? I don't know what it is.
That's Mew.
It's Mew? Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah.
150 is Mewtwo or something?
Yeah, 150 is Mewtwo, because Mewtwo was the last Pokemon properly in the Generation 1 games, and then Mew was kind of like a bonus Pokemon that wasn't properly in the game, but was hidden in the game.
Okay, so 151 is the number. You have to comment on our video in some fashion. We give you so much to comment on. There is so much good information, bad information, controversial information, unnecessary information. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you should be drifting off to sleep with at night. And then right before you hit the snooze button, set your alarm for the morning, you send me a message, you send me the number, give a quick comment, and then drift off to bed.
Yeah. The number 151 has to be in the DM to David only. Don't put that number in the comments.
Yes, if you put that number in the comments, you'll be automatically disqualified from this drawing and all future drawings, and we will hunt down your family. And I can't say what'll happen, but I can guarantee you it won't have anything to do with us having any legal representation for anything we might do that was not healthy for your family.
Unless your comment is about the TCG set 151. If you want to talk about that, you can. Just don't explicitly say that's the code for this week.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get on to... Should we get on NAIC, or do you have a trainer deck A or trainer deck B? What do you want to do today? Do you want to play that or not?
You know, I'd like to do, Dan, it really isn't a good video cast for me, podcast, something that we're doing here, unless I have a trainer deck A or trainer deck B. So I would like to play with you, Dan.
All right.
Let's get used to it. Let's get ready for it. Let's get ready to rumble. It's trainer deck A or trainer deck B, where for those of you who are watching for the first time, Dan has to pick a choice. He has 10 seconds to deliver me the answer with an explanation of his choosing. He doesn't have to. If Dan questions the choice, doesn't give a full choice, or gives an explanation that takes longer than 10 seconds, a Pokemon judge will appear. He'll be immediately disqualified. I've decided he can't be disqualified forever because he wants to be disqualified forever. He'll just be disqualified for the remainder of today's competition. Are we ready, Dan?
I wish you could find a way to explain those rules in less than 10 seconds.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, yep, off we go.
Okay. Dan, horticulture or nomenclature?
Horticulture, because it's the one I've heard of.
Dan,
or
radius,
you just pronounced it really wrong. You may have just pronounced something completely different.
Wrong. We're not doing turnips, okay? And
we're
turnips.
not doing that.
All right, fair enough. Dan, radius or circumference?
Radius, I guess.
I love the certainty with which you select your selections. It really shows people that you know who you're about. It's your authentic self, not knowing a damn thing. Dan, peanut butter or jelly?
Jelly, because I absolutely hate the taste of peanuts. Especially peanut butter. Cannot stand it.
But Dan, you're not allergic to peanuts. If I were to force feed you them, you wouldn't die, or we didn't have to stick an EpiPen in your leg, right?
No, but I'd rather you didn't do that.
All right, what about jelly, Dan? If you, even though you like it, would an EpiPen do anything to prevent you from having any issue with jelly?
No, I'm not allergic to jelly. The only things I'm allergic to are those two dogs in the front room. And I'm taking shots for that. I'm taking allergy shots.
That makes a lot of sense, Dan. Talk about working your life around your problems. Dan, freezing cold or, as I'm sitting right now, uncomfortably hot?
Freezing cold. Because you can always put more layers on to try and get warmer. If it's too hot, you can do everything and you might just still be too hot.
Tell me about it, buddy. Thank you for your empathetic nature. I really appreciate it. Dan, sedentary or rudimentary?
Rudimentary? I'm trying to think of what you're getting at when you're asking these things, and I should just realize you're just saying two things you've heard.
Dan, stipulation or indignation?
Stipulation. What? Is this just, have you just been reading your like law dictionary from back at school or something? You just picked some words.
Dan, I actually know what these words mean. They're not from the law dictionary. They're just parts of the human culture that we have in the United States of America. You Brits, the biggest words you use are Big Ben, and it's not really words. They're just about a big tower or something.
Yeah.
Dan, anticipation or matriculation?
Anticipation, because I genuinely have never heard the last word you said.
Okay, matriculation.
Sure.
You're going to find it's going to be interesting. It's got to do with some kind of enrolling in a school or something, Dan, okay?
Okay.
Dan, truth or veracity?
Truth.
Oh, that one gets me every time. Dan, single leg takedown or cradle?
What? Single leg takedown or cradle? Single leg takedown, I guess? That feels like it could be a sports thing, but...
Sports thing, you're the one that told me in a previous Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B or whatever the hell I was talking about that you used to watch and listen to and be a part of the WWE when you were a kid. These are wrestling moves, Dan. What?
Yeah. When I was a kid, I didn't know the technical terms for them. I knew that, I'm sure there is a very real technical term for what I know as the Stone Cold Stunner, but I know them by the hyped up WWF names.
Dan, this whole podcast is becoming a Stone Cold Stunner for most of the people watching at this point. So
you got many more?
I would just let it go with that. Dan, the chicken or the egg?
Chicken.
No, I think one thing about you is you just pick the first one when you have no idea what the heck you want to pick. Dan, idiosyncrasy or unavoidable habit?
All right, unavoidable habit then. Second one. There we go.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
By the way, anybody wants to comment on Dan's not knowing a damn thing about what we're talking about, have fun at it, okay? I'll keep this thing going forever if you guys enjoy it. Dan, national championships or North America championships?
I'll say the North American International Championships, because the times that I did go to nationals, it was UK nationals, which were nowhere near the spectacle of what North American or what USA nationals was before it became NAIC.
Okay. Good, right. Dan, and I think that's something we're going to focus on. I'm going to let you lead off to the NAIC that you were at in Columbus, Ohio, your hometown this past weekend, with everyone understanding that you really have to, because I was doing searches on eBay this weekend, and we're going to get to that there is a difference between North America and national championships, all right? And if you don't put the searches in right, you'll have an issue with that, okay, Dan? Take it away, buddy.
Are we going to talk about that difference when we get on to the cards in a minute then? You just So, as David said, it was NAIC down in Columbus this weekend at the Columbus Convention Center. So it ran from Thursday to Sunday, with the first day of the actual tournament being Friday. Friday, it was everyone who made it into the tournament played, and if you hit a certain point threshold, you got to go through to Saturday. Towards the end of Saturday, they cut to the top 8, so the 8 highest finishing players. And then I think it was still Saturday night, they played out the quarterfinals and semifinals. And then on Sunday, they played out all of the finals, because the finals they did back-to-back. For most of it, all of the age divisions and both events are playing at the same time, TCG and VGC. But I believe on Sunday, all 6 finals were staggered one after the other, to make it a nice viewing spectacle online.
Okay, and just stop, because that's okay. A great explanation. Thank you. But you always tell me that there's these other 2 things going on as well. And I don't know if there, we think that there's some cards related. You'll clarify this. Yeah. But what are the other things? Pokemon Unite or Pokemon, whatever. What else
Yeah,
is going on that potentially has some cards involved?
So the other two things going on were Pokemon Go and Pokemon Unite. Pokemon Go, Pokemon Go and Unite, I don't think got anything through to the Sunday. I think they were all Friday and Saturday competitions, potentially just Friday. I didn't keep too much of an eye on that. I will say all I can tell you about cards is they don't get anything unique to their tournaments. They just make it so there's more copies of things that TCG and VGC players would get. There's nothing that only Go players are getting or only Unite players are getting at the very least.
Dan, can you explain? Because I really don't know, and I think our viewers might like to know what goes on in. Do you know Pokemon Go or Pokemon Unite?
Yeah,
what goes on as far as competition? We understand VGC and TCG.
Yeah.
What goes on? What are they? Who is it? I think Unite is some kind of team thing. Is Go a team thing or an individual thing?
So Go is individual. So it's the app on your phone. You must have seen the app on the phone, right, David?
Yes.
So it's like that. It's the Pokemon you catch in that. You build up your Pokemon collection. You fight against other trainers, other players with those Pokemon that you've caught on the app. And it works a similar kind of way. It's Swiss rounds. You play against the people, you get paired against people with your similar record. Then they cut to top 8 or top 4 or whatever they do, and then do single elimination until they have the winner. So it does function kind of similar to VGC, in which it's a digital game. You're bringing your Pokemon team along with you.
So I mean that's so interesting to me. I had no idea there was such a thing, and so the difference is really that with VGC you can construct the decks of any type of characters, but with Pokemon Go you had to have captured these characters along the way playing Pokemon Go. Is that right?
Yeah. So for VGC, you are supposed to be catching the Pokemon and training them up, as opposed to using a device to generate them. Because if you can. There are devices which people can use to set their exact stats in VGC, but if it gets caught, if your team gets flagged that you've used one of those, you're DQ'd from the competition. But with VGC, someone else can do that for you. So VGC, someone else could catch the Pokemon, train them up, get the right stats, and trade it to you. But with Pokemon Go, if you trade a Pokemon with someone, it re-rolls its stats. So say if I traded you a Pokemon that had, say, 600 CP, which is its combat power or some sort of power it has in the game, it could get to you with, say, anything from 500 to 700. It's within a range, but it re-rolls it, so you can't trust on anyone else catching and training your Pokemon for you. It's something you have to fully do within your game. And if there's certain Pokemon, I don't know if regional exclusive Pokemon are banned. I would hope they are, because if not, it means that it could mean, if Sigilif ends up being really good, in order to play Pokemon Go tournaments, you first have to go to Egypt for 2 weeks, because it's the only place around the world that you can catch Sigilif. So my assumption would be that regional exclusives are banned, but I don't know that.
That's so cool. I did want to say something real quick because it just triggered. Yeah. The company that does Pokemon Go, which I think is something called like Niantic or something like that.
Yeah.
Niantic.
Yeah.
I don't know if you read this week, but they started laying off people from all other games except for Pokemon Go. They are not having profitability with those, and they want to put all of their efforts and resources into the one that's really thriving, which is Pokemon Go. So just another indicator of the hobby's continued, flourishment. So
Unite is then, I don't know if David, have you heard of League of Legends?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of games like that. I'm sure a lot of viewers will have at least heard of League of Legends, where it's team-based, like, fighting games. So I believe the way I haven't played Unite. You can play it solo. I don't remember I don't know if it's console or Steam on PC or something. And it's basically a fighting style game. I think if you play just with you may be randomly paired with people online, just into a team. And you have some Pokemon which will all have different strengths and weaknesses, and you're fighting against another team, but I don't think the goal is to knock them out. I think it's one of those destroy the base kind of games where it's, you've got to protect your base and your team's got to destroy the other team's base. I believe it's something like that. So it's about having balanced teams and players who are good at different parts of the strategy. That's how I think it works. Anyway,
my son watches a lot of those, a lot of the combat type stuff on videos on the TV or whatever, and And of course, for years, I've seen the combat type of fighting games where you have teams. Wouldn't it be interesting if one day Pokemon Unite got so large that it was something featured on ESPN where you've actually got 5 players against 5 players and it's the champion? And
well, I think League of Legends is on ESPN. I think that's the one that gets to ESPN. And Unite is, I think it's basically like that. I mean, if you watch the coverage this weekend, it's kind of like that. It has that commentary and stuff. And I think the only reason it wouldn't get featured on ESPN is I think Pokemon would want to keep the streams for themselves. I don't think Pokemon would want to license those streams out to ESPN when Pokemon can do the broadcasts themselves, basically.
Good. All right. Continue, my friend. Thank you.
Yep. So that was what was happening at NAIC this weekend. One of the other big things that's caused the most controversy is they had a pop-up store, which was a Pokemon Center. So it had all of the stuff you can buy at the Pokemon Center online, and it also had some exclusive NAIC merch. I say that. It was merch that was exclusive to the Championship Series, so I believe Europe had the same merchandise. And for some of the items, stock was unbelievably low. I mean, we knew that, as with all of these limited edition things, you've got to try and get in early. They're going to sell out. You're not going to end the weekend where there are some of these exclusive items left. But just how quick they went surprised us. So Thursday, it opened at 12. I had managed to get an appointment for, I think, 2:15. I did still get most of my stuff on that day. I got the exclusive playmat. I got the dice box. I got the sleeves. Not dice box, the deck box. The sleeves. A nice amount of stuff. The main things that I missed was I missed the backpack and I missed the pin. And we heard that the backpacks, they only had about 80 to 100 per day. And they'd sold out, obviously, within the first hour. That's fine. We had booked in 2 slots. We'd also booked in one 8 o'clock Sunday morning. So first thing Sunday morning. But we had other hope because Laura had a staff slot at the Pokemon Center. So the Pokemon Center closed at 7. On Thursday night, all of the staff could go in at 8 o'clock. And they had been told that it was going to restock. So Laura was like, great. She saw what I got and she was like, okay, I'm going to try and get the backpack and the pin. If I get other copies of the other stuff, fine. If not, those are what we want. Turns out that when they told the staff that they were restocking, they only meant they were restocking the stuff you could buy online. And they had not restocked any exclusive items for the staff. Which the staff said, if we'd known that, we wouldn't have queued up for 45 minutes. Because you come off your shift and then go and get into this queue, and some of the staff still would have done it, picked up a few things, or just wanted to see the inside of the Pokemon Center. But I think a lot of them would have just said, oh, if I'm not getting anything exclusive, we're leaving, basically. And there was a lot of complaints and stuff online about that. Another thing is, during Friday and I think Saturday, the exclusive stuff did restock at one point during the day, which was kind of awful for some people because it meant that if you got in at 8 o'clock, you got the exclusive stuff. If your appointment was 9 or 10, you missed it, but then suddenly they restocked at 11, and now if your appointment's at 11, you get it again. And that feels so much worse than just having everything at the start of the day and being like, okay, it's sold out by 11, it is what it is. But to say, like, if I had delayed my appointment, if I hadn't... Like, if I'd been late at booking my appointments, basically all the appointments ran out. Everyone was trying to book as early as possible. So it was like, oh, if I had been late booking my appointment, I had more chance of getting the nice stuff. Which, that definitely was bad for some people. Sunday morning...
Let me ask you about that for a second. So now knowing what you know, I have a couple of thoughts. The first thought is, it makes no sense at all for Pokemon to bring 80 to 100 items to a convention where there's whatever number, you'll tell us, 5,000 people or whatever was there.
Thousands of people, yeah.
Because the money they make on those 80 to 100 items or whatever the backpacks are, it pales in comparison to the controversy they've caused by everybody that couldn't get to buy it. You should have things with ample inventory that you can restock and everybody knows that's what they're, so that you don't have people hemming and hawing and walking away so frustrated and dejected. And it's too bad. We should have a way to talk to them about it and just try to trigger some common sense elements of what their marketing strategy is after the fact. But The second thing is knowing what you know now. If that were me and I really wanted to get like a backpack, I'm going to go to the first people in line and I'm going to basically hand them $100 or whatever, not more than it is. I'm going to say, look, can you buy this for me? I'm giving you a little extra money, and I'll give you an extra $10 if you just buy one or whatever. And I'm surprised that that's not going on more. Even if you're slipping them a note and, where it's not a visible thing and it's not controversial and it's private, but you say, look, if you could just pick this up.
I mean, I can tell you why that.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so one thing that they did was all of those exclusive items were limited to one per person. So each person that went in could buy one backpack, one playmat, etc. So
what I'm saying, Dan, is what if they didn't want a backpack? That wasn't what they were going to buy. So you're saying if you're not going to buy a backpack, I don't want to take your opportunity, but yeah, I'd like to have one. It'd be really important to me if you're not buying one.
I understand you saying that, but so our Sunday appointment, like I said, was at 8 a.m. We had the first time slot when they opened. We went there at 6 a.m. because we wanted the backpack. We wanted to try and be in that first group of people. And we were like 100 people back. People were getting there. The first people in line got there at 3:30 a.m. So I say anyone who was queuing up that early either wanted the backpack for themselves or wanted to resell it at the full resale price, because the backpack only sold in the store for $30. But I say it was the same backpack that was sold at the Europe IC, and they were already selling on eBay for $150. So if you were wanting to buy the backpack from someone, you would have to be offering them at least $150. And I will say the trade area that they had, if you went around after some people had got through, you could buy a backpack for $150, $200 if you really wanted to. Okay. But on the Sunday, the backpack was the only thing we missed, because I think, again, that day they had even less than the 80 to 100. I think they only had about, I heard 30, and then I also heard someone say they were in the first 30 people and didn't get one. But we got some more of the play mats, we got the pins and stuff, so it was only the backpack that we missed out on. But I think a lot of people think they should have really increased the supply, especially because it was exactly the same backpack that was at the Europe Championships. So it's not as though this was something they had just designed and it was new and something had happened getting it for this event. It was already produced in time for an event 3 months ago. So they just already had some of them. I don't know. It was a weird one. And someone else pointed out to me, if you're doing something like that where it's like, 100 a day, they could sort of understand if it was an item where they made a big deal about the fact that it was 100 a day and priced it as though it was a very big premium item. If you go in and it's like, this item costs at the Pokemon Center $200, there's only 100 a day, it's something big, then at least it's premium, but it was a $30 backpack. Pokemon isn't, I'm sure their percentage margin is big, but even if all of that money was profit, it's 30 backpacks, it's $30 a day for less than 100 backpacks a day. Like, they're not even making that much money on them. Like, they're not pricing it like a super premium product, but they're also not making the quantities for it being a general sale product. It was a very, very weird situation. The other limited stuff, like the playmats and stuff, obviously they did sell out each day, but there were much, much greater quantities of those. Like, at least on the first day, I'm sure they went through a couple of thousand playmats.
This is an extension of my discussion in a previous podcast about my frustrations with their whole marketing element of Pokemon Center and then what you're going into. Clearly there's so many more ways they could have done it in a more client-friendly, more beneficial to purchasers type of situation. You could have run a lottery. There's just things that you could have done that maybe are not quite as simple for them, but actually show a caring. I would hate to be the person. You're more easygoing, Dan. You're more tolerant to a lot of things. When you get to be my age, you're not tolerant of anything. Although I've got to say, I've become fairly tolerant of you, Dan. So thanks for warming me up, buddy. But if you get frustrated and you don't want to deal with them anymore. So
I mean, let me tell you, in those lines, I saw some people who were not very, very tolerant of stuff. I'm you know what? I'm going to say this now. if you're really rude to those Pokemon Center staff because you can't get your limited edition item because it's sold out, or because you're trying to get in earlier, or they're making you stick to your time slot, you're a terrible person. It's nothing to do with them. The people who are running the tills at the Pokemon Center are not the ones who decided to only bring 50 backpacks a day. Like, no staff member that you see at an international championship has anywhere near the level of power to be making those decisions. So anyone you're just being, like, taking your frustration out on, there's nothing that they can do.
You understand, Dan, that when you have a major problem with whatever's going on in life, real situation, real anger, you're supposed to cool off, right? You're supposed to not say anything. You're supposed to simmer down. Your boss does something to you, your coworker. You're supposed to take a night's sleep on it, reflect before you write that email or text response that's going to get you in so much hot water. So in this situation, when people are in that line, they don't have any diffuse the situation time. And I get it. I understand. You're completely right. It is not the employee's problem. But a lot of people, especially, with politically in this country, I don't know if that's Democrats or Republicans. But anyways, those people are just angry and they're not going to stand for it, okay? And I don't blame them. And so it's not the till people's fault. And another thing, Dan, that really I don't understand is what is this whole thing about you got to get there first? So we've seen this with the Pokemon Center online. We see this with people lining up at 3:30 in the morning. What if I'm a disabled human being and whatever it is, I just don't have that ability to get there, be there in a line at 3:30? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I think there's so many ways. We are in a world where you can be more client-centric. You can figure out ways to do these, I don't know the words, lottery, random drawings, whatever, raffles, whatever I'm not allowed to say. But in the store situation where you get a number and you get a call, and I know you're going to talk about, here's what's so interesting. You're going to talk in a minute about the card situation, the unique card situation from NAIC this past weekend. And that got to me to thinking about how much, I'm not going to give it away, I'm going to let you divulge it, but that got me to thinking about how much time and effort is it going to take the company, how much expense additional to take care of that situation from what they'd originally planned. Well, so you have a little extra, raffle or lottery, and it means people have to come back for their employees to give them a situation to win. I don't know, Dan, really frustrating. It continues to be the case with the merchandising end of this company. And I know, and we both know they can do better. So that now I ranted about that even unintentionally.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about the reason people were queuing up at 3:30 is, everyone has time slots. You had to book in a time slot. There was 8, 8:15, 8:30, whatever, throughout the whole day. But so for the first day, and I think even Friday, no one was queuing up really before about 7:30, 7:45. Like, you've got to get in the line about 15 minutes before your appointment so they can check your text message that you got, check your ticket to make sure you have that appointment. But it's just, as soon as it became known that they didn't even have enough merchandise for the 8 o'clock people, that's when everyone was like, oh, well, it's not only that I've booked the first time slot, I'm going to have to be there to be the first person at that first time slot. If they had enough for all the people, like literally, even if they just had enough stock for all of the people in the 8 o'clock time slot, and they know how many that is because they sold the tickets, then it completely eliminates that having to be there at 3:30 thing. Because if everyone in the 8 o'clock slot knows they're getting exactly what they want, they don't need to be there till 7:45. And like, if the people at the 8:15 slot know that either they are or not getting this, they need to be there at 8 to get in the 15-minute queue. And yeah, I can totally understand that a lot of people would not be able to stand for that length of time. I mean, obviously, if there are people who are, in wheelchairs, on crutches, whatever, there are, special things they can do. They can help people get around. There are things in place for that. But obviously, the idea of someone having to stand for 15 minutes to having to be there for 3 hours opens up a whole different issue. So I think even like those extra issues that you've mentioned are just spin-offs from the stock issue. And I think if the stock issue was fixed, that would be sorted.
And Dan, you said one other thing, and I hate to argue with you because most of the time one of us is right and one of us is wrong, but you were mentioning the idea of, pricing at a premium, and maybe that's going to be something that might make a difference as well. But obviously, if you don't fix the stock issue, which is what you said, then you can price as much as you want high, and people will still come in and buy it, just like they bought, skateboards or whatever. By the way, Dan may have a couple of those from Worlds to last year to take care of and sell to you if you need it. And it doesn't matter because they know that resale market's going to be out there regardless of what they pay. So
I think it comes into the idea that a lot, like almost everyone there would have happily paid $30 for that backpack.
Right.
So the fact that they've seen someone get to pay $30 for that backpack that they don't actually want and then resell it for $150, people are upset about that. If it's some big exclusive item, it's like this item is $500. Like there are those giant plush. Even if those were super limited, there are not everyone at that event wants to spend $500 on that plush. So if they wouldn't have spent the $500, like say people buy it for $500 at the Pokemon Center, they sell it for $1,000. If someone wouldn't have bought it for $500, they're not going to care that someone's selling it for $1,000. But with the backpacks, they would have bought it for $30, so they do care. Understood. But I don't think that pricing it at a premium is the solution. I'm just saying that would at least make more sense why it was a limited item if it was something that was priced at a high premium and advertised as being a very limited item.
Yeah, got it.
So that's probably enough on the Pokemon Center. So here we get on to the part about why I didn't film much inside the Pokemon Center. Well, I filmed a little bit in the Pokemon Center, sorry, not much inside the main hall. So Sunday, obviously I went in super early, went through the Pokemon Center, and my plan was then to just sit and trade with people at the trade area for quite a while, like do about half my day at the trade area, and then I had some cards I wanted to go sell to vendors, then I was going to go in, do some like filming and stuff for videos, and that was my plan for the day. But I go to the trade area, I get a table at the trade area, and I don't want to leave it. I want to sit there for as long as I'm trading, because it was a cafe in the convention center that they just rented out and put as trading area. So it kind of meant that people would show up early, they'd sit down, they'd put their stuff out, and they'd be at that table trading all day. It kind of meant if you were just walking in and out, you couldn't really sit anywhere unless you were trading with a person who had that table, which it doesn't really feel in the spirit of a trade area, but it is how it is. It's always going to be like that. But the Sunday I sit down and I set my stuff out, and I'm doing quite a lot of trades. There's a few people trying to do like trade up challenge, so I'm giving people some decent values on stuff. And one of the things I trade for early in the day is I trade for a damaged first edition base set Venusaur. Laura has a base set binder, I showed it off in a previous video. She's been slowly piecing together first edition for a while, and especially on base set, she doesn't care about the condition on cards. And so someone had one, and I had some of my old Worlds merch from last year, which I'm sure I've told you, I brought back to try and sell, and it wasn't selling very well, so I had a lot of it with me. So they wanted some of that, so I was like, okay, great, I'm more than happy to trade that stuff. Traded it off, I have the card in front of me, I'm doing some other stuff, I'm there for a couple of hours, and then at some point, I realize my Venusaur has gone walkabout. My Venusaur isn't on the table anymore. So obviously I panic, I start I start looking through all my stuff, make sure I just haven't put it in the wrong place. I can't find it. First thing I did was, luckily when I got it, I'd taken a photo of it, because I put it in some Discords and stuff saying, hey, I got this, I'm going to trade for this, really cool. I go around the vendors, first things first, go to the vendors, tell them if someone tries to immediately sell this to you, it's mine, it's been stolen. I then went back to our hotel room, or Laura's hotel room. I was staying at home with the dogs and driving every day. I empty everything I've got out, triple check, quadruple check that I haven't just put it somewhere. And I hadn't. And so I spent most of the rest of the day with convention center security, just trying to see what we could do. I posted in the Facebook group stuff. I will say I don't 100% know that someone stole it. I was trading with people. There is a possibility when I was doing trades, a pile of someone's cards got put on top of it. Like if they had some cards in top loaders, either me or them's accidentally put it on top of it, and then as we were moving their stuff, it's just got squared up. There is still the chance it got taken accidentally. And in that case, if it did, I hope people will contact me about it. The photos of the card are on my Twitter, Instagram, and I post in Verbank and stuff. With the damage that's on it, it's pretty. You could tell, it's identifiable. If it was stolen, it's gone. It's somewhat my fault. I'm not saying I'm completely blameless in this. Obviously, not as much to blame as the person who stole it if they did. Likely, if it was stolen, what happened is just at some point, someone's given me a binder. I'm holding the binder. My vision of the table is partially obscured. Slip a top loader off into a pocket. It was one of the only cards on my side of the table, so that I couldn't still see it when I had the binders. But also, a first edition Venusaur is a card that, even if you're not super into Pokemon, it's a card that at a glance is a valuable card. Yeah, I had other stuff on the table that was kind of valuable, but it was, I had some extra world staff cards that I was trying to trade away. There's a very rare Pokemon catcher. It's a player reward that's a few $100. But those ones, if you only knew a bit about Pokemon, you'd never immediately go, that's a rare card. But at first edition, base set Venusaur, you would know. So I think it was most likely, if it was stolen, as it wasn't by accident, it was just someone taking an opportunity. They just saw it. They saw me get distracted for a second. Maybe I turned to speak to someone. Gone.
I definitely want to tell you how I'm sorry for that happening.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things when they happen, again, especially to someone like you who's so optimistic as a person, for anybody else, they'd be even more devastating. For you, you just kind of meander through, but I'm sure it was very difficult and very disappointing. So I'm definitely sorry to hear that. I know that it's funny when you get, again, it's like yin and yang, you and me, but when you get to be my age, you almost feel like you should have security around you 24/7 because you're expecting things to go wrong all the time just because they have so much.
I mean, the thing is, I did have like a locking. Well, I didn't have the case for it, but it was a case that clicked closed. I had that in my bag because at events like these, I normally take some trophy cards. I take my trophy cards with me because there's a lot of people like to see them. Like, I told some people about them, and a few people took photos and stuff of them over the weekend. So my plan had been get the Venusaur into that box, put it in my bag, because it wasn't something I was trying to trade away, so it doesn't need to be on the table. Just, it started moving pretty quick and stuff in the trade area. I did make a lot of nice trades up to that. I think if this had just been a card that I had traded for because I wanted it, I think I'd have been less upset about it, but it was because it was specifically a card I traded for Laura, and I was going to give it to her. She'd been working hard all weekend, and it's the most expensive card she's still missing from first edition base set, even though, like I said, it was damaged, but it was still more,
what's it worth? Just curious, when you say the most expensive, just curiosity, what would you think it's worth?
Well, so we agreed, because we were trading stuff, we agreed on a trade value of $500 for it.
Okay, I'm just curious. And Dan, I do want to ask one last question. I know you got more to talk about too. So, but I just want to understand, I as hard as it was to hear that, I couldn't necessarily put the two and two together. Were you saying that the reason you didn't film in the main hall or whatever was because you set up at that place and you didn't want to be walking around, you wanted to maintain that table for the longer time?
So not exactly. So my plan had been to, I did that for the start, but I planned to do that for most of the first half of the day. And my plan had been to stay there till probably about 2:00 and then go and do the filming inside. But then
when the theft happened, you were I
was more panicked. I put my stuff up in the room. I had to go check it, and then I was with kind of what I thought. I was with Convention Center security for quite a while. If someone did take it by mistake, there is a chance it's someone will contact me. If it did get mixed in with someone's stuff, but if it was stolen, it's long gone by now. I told the vendors at the event just in case someone was trying to get rid of it immediately, but I knew once the event was over, it's never going to be tracked anywhere, really. But that's the reason I didn't end up doing a lot more filming and stuff inside the event hall.
Dan, take us through the cards from the event, please. The winners' cards, that kind of stuff.
So the cards that would be given out, which are new for NAIC, is an Ultra Ball. We've seen the Ultra Balls already. There was the Oceania, so ECIC, and the Europe, EUIC, already had basically the same Ultra Ball for their tournaments. It's just that the event logo on it will say, Oceania, Europe, or North America, or Latin America, but that one's in Portuguese. And so for those tournaments, there'd be the regular version, then there'd be staff, top 8, and champion copies stamped on the card with the gold stamp given out to staff members, top 8s, and champions. But as it turned out, none of those stamped cards were given out this weekend because they all arrived badly damaged. So what they said they were going to have to do is either, I don't know if they were getting them reprinted fully or if they were taking leftover player ones and having the stamps applied to them. But they said that all staff and top 8 players and winners would have the cards mailed out to them at a later date. It was kind of funny. I got a message from you explaining that it happened with the top 8s and champions. And 5 minutes later, I met up with Laura to help her carry her stuff, her compensation, back up to the hotel room. And she showed me that she was just given a player's copy and explained the situation that happened with the staffs. And I said, oh, I've just heard that happened with the top 8s and champions as well. So it was all stamped copies. So the only actual card that was released for NAIC was the Players Ultra Ball, the unstamped Ultra Ball currently, with 3 more coming later.
Yeah, what a disappointment. I mean, so disappointing for people that are there. So disappointing, I'm on the texting everybody trying to acquire different cards, and I've got this signed up for you, and then all of a sudden you get the message that I sent to you that is like, sorry, David, even though I was going to get you this card, they're not going to get us the card, so there's nothing we can do. Yeah. And you think with something that's such a huge, significant part of the whole thing, getting the cards there undamaged at this point in the history of the company. Again, we're railing on the company a little bit today, but not the franchise, just on some of these little things. The cost it's going to take for them to have to figure out all those people and all those participants and all the winners, just the logistics involved is really a big pain. So that was a real disappointment, I know, for a lot of people.
I will say I don't think it was just, they got to the event, opened the box, and then they found them damaged. I think it was probably we got the printing company sent them to our office. We opened them at the office, and there wasn't enough time to get them remade in time for the tournament. So probably an error, probably something wrong on the shipping company, most likely at that point. But obviously that's some level of speculation there.
Dan, let me say something at this point, because that's never going to work for me, buddy, but I appreciate your perspective. So what everybody in my family and in my life knows is I have 2 words, and everything in my life is about transparency and accountability. And so when I dropped some weights this morning and I went flying when I was trying to get my little tiny 12-year-old to spot me because my older boys aren't around, and I went flying on the floor with a 75-pound weight hurtling at my head, and he wondered why I wasn't mad at him. And I said, why do you think I wasn't mad at you for not spotting me properly in that situation? And he goes, because it's your fault. And I go, why is it my fault? And he goes, accountability. I go, that's right. Because his problem was he's too young to be spotting me. And so if I fall, it's my fault. And I'm going to take responsibility for it. If you're a company that's running the largest media franchise, if that is your company in the world, and you can't figure out how to get cards printed into you in a soon enough fashion before an event like this happens and examine the cards and make sure the quality control is there, then you aren't doing your job right. Somebody in that company is not doing their job right, and somebody should not have a job in that company. That's accountability, and there's no excuse for it whatsoever. We are not in a pandemic, Dan. We are in a regular situation where these can be done and things can be ahead of time, and they should have figured it out. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And like Forrest Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that. I don't know.
Fair. I mean, they are at least committing to shipping them all out to... Oh, David's camera's turning.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm moving in the sun. Yeah. Just keep talking.
They are shipping them out to the players and the staff members who would have needed them. So at least the people who earned these cards are going to be getting them. It's not just like because we screwed up, you don't get these anymore. They are at least going to be receiving them.
Okay, stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. What the hell is wrong with you? Okay, go ahead. Next.
I'm not giving them Pokemon the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying it's at least good that no one's missing out on something that they should have.
It's at least good that they're fulfilling their obligation that they're supposed to do. All right, Dan, good. Yes. Yeah.
I'll say there's two other cards kind of worth talking about from this weekend. Not exactly tied to NAIC. So they're both Professor Program cards. So they have the Professor Program logo on them. One of them is Roxanne, who has previously been a Regionals promo, which would have had a Regionals logo on her, now has a Professor Program version. And this is one of the, it might be the new seminar promo. So Professor Seminars are events that happen at Regionals or some other events where professors will get together. Professors who've been doing this longer will do presentations and stuff for newer professors for them to basically share knowledge, learn stuff from each other. And if a professor goes to these, they get a promo. Last year, there were 3 different ones you could get. It was Sonia, league staff, or gym trainer. I think initially the plan was Europe would have one, North America would have one, South America would have one, and then they'd rotate. But from what Laura got, it ended up just being you could get one of the 3, depending, just whatever. There was not huge consistency to it. So for this next season, the next 12 months, there's Roxanne. There may be more, but this was the first one of the season, so we only know about Roxanne.
What was the other one that you sent me?
The other card I sent you was Komado, which I had seen this card previously because one of my friends posted a picture of it, a guy named Rodell. He posted a picture of a Professor Komado. He had one in each language, and he said, "Oh, Pokemon just sent this to me." And we looked into it, and what it is Komado is going to be a promo that isn't tied to a specific event, is not tied to specific seminars. It's to do with a certain team of either judges or TBCI people. I'm not 100% sure how it's working. Go around events, and if they see professors doing certain things, they can have a conversation with them. If they're doing a good job, or if they are just explaining how they do something, it's a promo that can be randomly handed out to a professor at one of these events. I don't think they're going to be super limited or anything like that. Same with the Roxannes. I think there will be, over the course of the next 12 months, I think there will be a lot of them appearing. But for now, it seems like this event is the only place you can actually be given them at an event, or some people got them mailed to them within the last month or so.
Okay.
So that's
and I know what I said was, I said that, what did you give me? But I meant, I just meant you sent me a picture of some of these cards, and I didn't know what it was. So that's what I was asking.
Yeah. It was the Roxanne, the Komado, and that was the two I sent you the picture of.
Okay.
So obviously, David and myself didn't get any copies of those this weekend, but Laura did. Laura did get both the Roxanne and the Komado because she went to the seminar and she did something good that people took notice of. I'm sure that when she gets more if she gets more during the year, I'll get those, and David can either buy one from someone, or if Laura gets 3, I'm sure we can send some your way, David. But worth noting, something you did get this weekend is I picked up a few different promos for you. So you already had the Ultra Balls from Oceania, you told me, which was the first of the 3 ICs. And the Europe ones, I did meet up with people and picked up the top 8 and the champion. Obviously, you'd already done the purchases, but it was just meeting people in person. So we got you the top 8 and the champion from that one. And then the other card we got you for the weekend was the staff version of Friends in Galar, which was the Professor Cup promo for this season that's nearly finished, basically. For people who don't know, the Professor Cup tournament that professors only can play in, it's the only Professor Program promo that will have staff top 8 and champion versions. And David had the top 8 and champion versions, but because of weird distribution this year, they decided to only send one staff promo to the organizer of each event. So the staff one was as rare as the champion. And I'm hoping if they keep doing these Professor Cup promos, they're not going to make that same mistake again. But we have it now. Well, David has it now. I'm never going to end up with one, I don't think. I think it's going to be one staff promo that's always a bit of a hole in my collection, at least for the foreseeable future. But at least we picked up David's, and then, those are the main things that you added to your collection this weekend.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for being the liaison for all that. I'm hoping that the reason that we have them all come to you is so the next time you visit me, you can actually bring Laura and give her a chance to have some fun and not just you.
I do have a nice stack of things for you that's building up. I think we said it's probably best to wait until after Worlds for me to come visit you, because we're on fingers crossed I will be coming back with some stuff for you from Worlds.
Okay, good. I like that. I like the optimism. I definitely think we're going to make that happen. So, all right. Well, I appreciate you getting all that stuff. I know we'll probably show a few pictures of that too, since I don't have those cards. But I will say that that what I spent the weekend doing real quick is I started going back. I've never finished just finishing my collection, going back. I keep going back through the first sets, all the way through the EX era and through Diamond and Pearl and Plasma Freeze and whatever the heck I got out there. And I still never get it all in binders. And finally this weekend, I really gave it my yeoman shot, and I'm getting close, but I'm about I'm missing like 2 or 3 sets of reverse hollows that I got to find in boxes. Yeah. While I'm doing that, I decided I wanted to make a project out of finding all of the national championship cards. You were at NAIC, which stands for North America something championships.
It used to be Intercontinentals. It's now Internationals.
Now North America International Championships or whatever. And then I started back from 2004 to find all of those championship cards, noting that they seemed to stop in 2014 or so. With the first one was a Machamp, and then the last one was a Blaziken, I think. And then we moved to 2015 or something, and we start getting Inter 16 or whatever, and we get to double colorless balls and ultra balls and quick balls or double colorless energies. So we're gonna post pictures of all of those from my collection. Some have staffs. Do they all
Yep.
have staffs? Maybe they all have
Well,
staffs.
all the ones you sent me have staffs. The one that you forgot about doesn't. The one that you didn't send me a picture of doesn't, which I'll talk about in a moment. When you finish saying what you have to say, and then I will say some things I have to say.
And this, folks, is why you watch, because it's me who really doesn't know anything, Dan who knows everything, and we're just trying to find somewhere to quintessentially and quietly meet in the middle. So I sent Dan these cards because I wanted him to not forget. He's all about today and now, these millennials. You guys are all millennials. I'm the old guy. So I wanted you to understand that there were these beautiful cards, and some are more rare than others. Like I pulled out the Dragonites and I put them in there and I sent them to Dan, and I'm like, I haven't seen this card in years. But of course, I haven't looked for that card in years. And I know that some of the staffs are more valuable, like the Blastoise or the Machamp. And then now I found out there was anyone I'd even send to Dan, because who even knows what I'm doing most of the time when I'm sending pictures. So Dan, tell me about what you found. Tell me about what I sent you. Which cards are nice? Which cards give you memories? Why did they change North America from Nationals in 2014? And if you guys go searching on eBay like I did, you better search for Nationals prior to 2014 in North America after that, or you're not going to find what you want.
Yeah. So it was basically a big revamp of the tournament system is why they changed things. I'll first say Nationals were a very different tournament to the ICs that happen. When Nationals were happening, it was every country that was involved in Pokemon had their own national championships. And they had different levels of how many people got invited or how many points they gave based on the size of the country. You know, I think the USA Nationals maybe gave like 8 people flights or something by the end of it, but smaller countries would have the top 2 qualify and the top 1 gets a flight, something like that. But every single country had a Nationals. When they first started, it used to be you could go to any country's Nationals, but I think you could only go to 1 per year. You just could pick which one. And then later on, they stopped it. So it was no, whichever country you're a resident of, that's the Nationals you can play in. And then when they changed it, they got rid of Nationals and they started having 4, like I said, they used to call them Intercontinentals. They're now Internationals, they're called. 4 of those around the year and spread out around the calendar and around the world. So there's an Oceania one, Latin America, North America, and Europe. And I think the Latin America one takes place right at the start of the season. The Pokemon season runs from September to August, ending in the World Championships in August. But Latin America's early in the season, then Oceania, then Europe, then North America. And it was just when they basically redid the whole tournament system. It used to be where tournaments would build up through the year. So you'd have these much smaller tournaments at the start, you know, the battle roads, the cities. Then it would go into the states, and you'd have all your regionals. Then you would have your nationals, then worlds. So it basically meant that for people playing, the only big time to get points was right before worlds. So basically, very few people were qualifying for worlds up until at least the second half of the year. But now that there's bigger tournaments, these ICs are happening every few months, and regionals basically happen year round now. There's much bigger things to travel to all the time, and you can, you know, because before if nationals fell on a bad weekend for you, like you had some obligation, there's a good chance you just couldn't qualify for worlds that year. Whereas now, if one of the ICs falls on a bad weekend, you always have the option to try and get to another 1 or 2, something like that. So that's why they changed, and that's why the promos changed. But first Nationals, after Pokemon took over, the promo was Charizard. That's the one you forgot to send me, David, from the EX Dragon era. No, EX Dragon set, sorry.
What year is that?
So it was the 2003 to 2004 season.
I think I took a picture of it, but you're right. I remember the one that had the 3 in a row, 98, 99, and 100 of 97. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so, I might have not forgot to, yeah.
For most of those tournament series, they used an evolution line of Pokemon. So the basic Pokemon would be the cities promo, its evolution would be the states promo, then the final evolution would be the nationals promo. And then you notice them all together in Dragon because they use the secret rare ones with consecutive numbers, where other sets you'd have, you know, the big Pokemon would have been a holo, so it would be earlier on, then the middle one would be an uncommon, so it's further down your numbering system. But that Charizard one didn't have a staff. That's the only Nationals promo that did not have a staff variant.
Got it. Good. Dan, what is the reason, in your opinion, that yeah, I guess I'm making. I don't think it's really a full statement though, as I think about it, because I know that there are some of those national championships like Escavalier and whatever that are,
Scavalier. Yeah.
yeah, that are that don't go for anything. But in general, why do you think that there's so much more interest in the national championships than the North America ones as far as card collectors? Is it back to vintage, and that's kind of mainly what it is?
That plus it's I think they're just they're rarer overall. I think because just the amount of players that go to these tournaments, like even just the amount of people who were at NAIC this weekend might be more than every nationals combined from like 2003, 2004, because those tournaments were small back then. Like even if you added up every country that was running one, it might not meet the multiple thousands of people who were playing this weekend.
But what you have to integrate in that conversation, that explanation, something to do though with the popularity of the hobby or the number. You're talking about the number of participants or spectators, but we're
Yeah,
not talking about the ones that are handed out, the participants. We're really talking about really staffs and top eights, champions. I guess certainly back in the day there wasn't those, so I guess all you
yeah,
really were getting was staff, right? So
yeah, regular and the staff.
yeah, I mean, it's just so funny. These things are still so relatively inexpensive. And when I was putting those cards together yesterday, I was thinking this is kind of a cool collection of
Yeah,
just, nationals and North America championships that most people probably have no idea or have no interest in owning.
yeah. I mean, I think it is just there's probably a few different things. It might just be because not that many people care about the tournament scene really outside of Worlds. I think because these are obviously tied to tournaments, people who are just collecting don't have as much tie to tournaments as they do to other events that would give out promos or other things that there are other ways of giving out promos that they might be more tied to, especially in Japan. Japan has loads of different ways that give out promos, so it may just be because the collectors don't care that much about actual tournaments, so don't focus on the tournament promos quite as much. But some of them do still have quite decent value, especially the older ones.
And of course, if you're a master set collector, I mean, they really do come into play. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
really doing it the way that we always say that you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, but again, as we've talked about, there just aren't that many more. There aren't that many of those anymore. I guess, as we said, for the EX era, there are
Yeah.
probably more master set collectors for the EX and Diamond and Pearl era, and some of that is to do with the ICs, because if you're wanting to do a master set collection, you have to say, is this viable to me? And when there's a promo and a staff variant, yeah, it's more likely than when there are 4 different champion stamped cards. Like the
Yeah.
fact that the IC promos exist might be enough for people to look at it and go, okay, well, I want to collect a set where I can 100% master set this. I'm going to stay away from that set because it has these champion cards that are way out of my price range.
But of course, I guess you could a master set. I mean, it's like you said. There's also a factor of reality and money and all the rest of
Yeah.
it, and you can kind of set your goals accordingly. But where would that cutoff be again? If you're gonna say to a doable master set type of situation, notwithstanding top eight and champions, how far forward can we come? Can we go through like XY era? Can we go through Sun and Moon era? How far do we go to where those are still pretty doable if someone really wanted to attack it? Most of the cards are available.
I mean, I would say the only eras that have the sets that have where I think a person could reasonably say, okay, I'm going to try and master set this would be between Diamond and Pearl or Fates Collide. I think that is the area you have to look at, because XY Evolutions was the first one that had these champion stamped IC promos. And with the EX era, at least the second half of it, the price on gold stars has gone up so much that for those, it's not even about the variants. Like for the EX era, you could pick up every variant card pretty cheaply. Like it wouldn't cost you that much to get a hold of very like relative to different things, but finishing the actual sets would be way harder. Kind of,
But But
Yeah, but Stadium Challenge Deoxys does not count in that. That is the one.
well, no, I
variant.
know, but I guess what I'm saying is
yeah,
you have to look at conditions, though, Dan. Like we know how popular
We
those
do.
gold stars are, but at the same time, finding a damaged one or a light played or a heavily played or moderately played or people played with it until they were all drunk and silly at night. When that happens, then you can get it for a lot less expensive, and it's still part of a collection, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean that. I guess that depends on the person collecting again, whether they would rather have like one master set that's mint in a binder or 10 master sets that are damaged in a binder. That comes down to the certain people, I think.
Yeah.
So do you want me to just run through what the Nationals cards were, or did you have more?
Yeah, you can, sure, and maybe a comment real quick on anything you think's important as far as
Yeah. So
the rarity or anything. Sure.
I think you have this in order for me. So obviously the first one was the Charizard, which there was just the Charizard, didn't have a staff version. Then they started adding staffs, and there was a Machamp the year after from Legend Maker or Hidden Legends, I think that one is. Then Exploud from EX Emerald, then Blastoise from Crystal Guardians. That was the EX era run of those. Into the Diamond and Pearl era, there was Luxray from Diamond and Pearl base set. After the Luxray, there was Dragonite from Legends Awakened. Again, all of these had player versions and staff versions. And then we move on to a bit of a weird era, which is where they stopped putting the actual event name or anything on the card. So if you see all the pictures posted up to now, they will have the symbol that says Nationals, and they had the cities ones, the states ones. But then we entered into an era where they just didn't do that. So I really dislike them, I will say, because I think they look very similar to League Pros, just very cheap, easy to obtain cards from the same era. They don't stand out. There's nothing really cool where you can go, this was Nationals promo. You just kind of have to know that it was the Nationals promo,
which is so bizarre. I'm in agreement with you. I don't understand at all why those don't have stamps on them, and I think a lot of people are really confused. And what I'll tell you, what's so interesting is that there's so much verbiage online as far as people saying, what is this not, or in eBay a lot of people copy each other's listings. And so they have no idea that they'll call something a national championship when it isn't. It's a whole different card because they're just copying someone else, and it doesn't have, like the Space Center 10th anniversary card, which doesn't have the 10th anniversary stamp, but yet people still call it the 10th anniversary card. All of that stuff, when you have to really, navigate your way through just to be careful you're getting what you actually are supposed to wanting to be getting.
Yeah, there was only 2 years where they did that. They changed it back pretty quick and started putting the symbol back on. But the 2 where they didn't was Garchomp from, I think it is Supreme Victors, and then Politoed from, I think it's Unleashed, the second Heart Gold Soul Silver set. The Politoed, especially in staff, is pretty expensive relative to the cards around it. I'm not sure why. It's not as expensive as, I don't think, the Machamp and the Blastoise and stuff, but it's a lot more expensive than the few that came before it and a few that come after it. I'm not sure why it is. Don't know whether people like Heart Gold Soul Silver a lot, but that's the way it always is. Next one was Escavalier, which is the one you mentioned. I think it's from Noble Victories. That one was the first one we've had that isn't Stage 3 Pokemon, I believe, because there's 2 different Pokemon. It's Carablast and Shelmet, which where you have to trade them for each other, and then they evolve. So one evolves into a Selgor, and one evolves into a Scavalier. So the 2 little ones, Shelmet and Carablast, were promos for like cities and states, maybe, and then a Selgor was regional, something like that. And then the next year was Espeon from, I think it's Dark Explorers. That one was the year where, Eevee was the city championship, but then all the different regionals had different evolutions, and over like a 2-year period, all of the evolutions got promos for different events. It's a very, very, very nice, very sought after set that whole year. But the Espeon staff on that one again is another pretty expensive one because people really like the evolutions and they really want to finish that tournament set. So next up was Tropius from Boundaries Crossed. Editing Dan again. That Tropius is from Plasma Blast. I always mix those symbols up from the Boundaries Crossed and Plasma sets. This was at the point where, they were doing whatever they needed to do for the tournament era. It didn't need to be. I think Tropius, because the first few tournaments of that year bled into the evolution overlap. I think Glaceon and Leafeon were in that year, so it didn't have an evolution line again. But yeah, Tropius was a Nationals promo. And then the next year was Blaziken from Furious Fists, back to the 3 Pokemon evolution line. And then the final Nationals promo was from Fates Collide, and that was Chaos Tower, which was the first non-Pokemon Nationals promo, our first stadium. And we haven't had a Pokemon be the Nationals promo ever since. And then, so that was towards the end of the XY era, and then that's when we made the move to Internationals, Intercontinentals, and we changed the promo system up.
I think it'd be such a cool thing for someone to actually say, so we've gone over again today because that's not something we've ever done before. Yeah. But I do want to say that it's I'm gonna hold my rant till next week, and I'm sorry for those because I really want to rant. I'm just angry about everything right now. This whole political climate of the country has got me going.
Oh my God.
I kid you about the political climate. I love America.
I ranted a bit more than usual today.
Fair enough. Dan took over the ranting responsibilities today.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is, in Facebook this week, there was somebody who said, hey, I'm getting started in Pokemon. What should I do? And then, of course, people are crazy because it's like, you know what you should do? You should buy these packs because they have the most expensive cards you can buy. Okay, just, take a chillax pill and settle it down. How about asking the person what means something to them? What would resonate with them? Would it be a year? Would it be a set character? Would it be making a master set? How about just shutting up for 5 minutes and asking them a question? But what I think would be cool, just as something to throw out as an idea for someone that this actually was an interest to, look at the sun, guys. I can't see anything now, but I'm still here. It's like 113, and I've lost, let me just check.
I can see too much. Fix your shirt.
Just 1 sec. No, that's sun. Dan, I've lost 7 pounds.
It's not just sun. Fix your T-shirt.
Dan, it's 7 pounds I've lost so far, okay? I want to let you know.
Okay.
I want to say that wouldn't it be cool to collect the city, state, national, and championships along with regionals as a challenge for a collection that somebody was just starting? That would be kind of cool. So,
yeah,
okay,
good. It would be a cool collection, and especially because we're in internationals now, so it's done. It's a finite collection. It's not being still added to. It would be a cool collection.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for your affirmative response.
I'll jump to the IC promos. We'll tell people what they were real quick. Started out with the double colorless energy from the first year of them. And this was when they started adding top 8 and champion, as well as just having the player version and the staff version. Interestingly, the first one that they held just says either internationals or intercontinentals on it. I don't remember which way around it was. It doesn't say which IC it's from, which was when we were buying the cards. It was very, very weird because obviously those 6 champion ones went out, but then there was the discussion of, well, are there going to be 24 copies of this champion by the end of the year? And the same with I waited off on buying my staffs and stuff for that year. I don't even know if I ended up getting them for that IC. But it was like, well, are there going to be just a ton more given out? Because it just says internationals. I think that year it was Latin America was the first one. It was either Latin America or Oceania doesn't have one that says that, it just says internationals. Future Dan, once again, as you probably see by the image on the screen, it was the Europe internationals which came first and did not get Europe written on the card and just had international on the card. And then whatever the second one was said the name of which international it was. And that was the point where everyone went, oh, they're going to be different. Now we have to go back and find the one that says internationals. And that is also the only year where all 4 of them are in English. So it's the only year that you've cared about all 4. Starting from the next year, which was an Ultra Ball from, I think that's from Sun and Moon. The Latin America one was in Portuguese. And ever since then, the Latin American promo has always been in Portuguese. But the other 3 were in English, which again featured player, staff, top 8 champion for Europe, Oceania, and North America. The next year was Choice Band from Guardians Rising. And interestingly, this one actually featured new artwork. Like, the artwork that's on that card is not the artwork that's on the card in the set. So if you see that Choice Band, you'll see it's got a yellow A in a black bubble in the corner. That was the symbol for alternate arts during that era. And I think even since then, I don't think we've had an alternate art internationals promo. So they've only done it the once. And that year, as well as the Latin American one being in Portuguese, the European one was in German because they held the European Championship in Germany that year rather than in London. So that one was in German as well.
Is that the Wall Band?
Yeah, Wall Band, I think it's called.
Okay. More sunscreen. I'm burning out here. Okay, go ahead. I'd like to thank my sponsors while I have this chance to do so. Premier Protein, where once a year you can get a special pumpkin spice limited edition. It helps me keep on the protein that I pack on after I do my weightlifting. And iPhones, where you can keep track while you're doing a podcast, and also your employer makes you use one that you've got to have everything monitored, and they listen to everything and watch everything, so you need two at your side at all times.
You done?
I'm done.
So the next one, I realized I totally made a mistake about that choice band. There was one more that had a different artwork after the choice band. This was Pokemon Communication. So this would have been the next in line for the Intercontinentals. So they did the Oceania one, which was in English, and then I believe they did the Latin America one, which was in Portuguese for the Pokemon Communication. And then this thing happened that was a pandemic, and the world shut down. So the Europe and North American championships never happened. So for the Pokemon Communication, Oceania is the only English language one that if you're focusing on English language, and obviously there's a Portuguese one for Latin America. So only 2 out of the 4 have that one. And then skip forward a couple of years.
Now wait, Dan, did I not send you that one?
No, you didn't.
And because I didn't see it when I Google searched, of course, people may wonder why didn't you see it? Because my cards are master set included, so I have to know where to go, which sets to go in, and of course I have no idea. That's why I'm here. So I was just going on eBay to try to remember what years, and when I went 2017 North America and 2018 North America. What did I screw up, Dan? Should I have said 2017 or 18 Oceania? Is that why I didn't see it?
Yeah. The problem is because the North American tournament got cancelled, so Oceania was the only English language one from that year.
Okay, so Dan, you've taught me something today, which is why I'm glad I don't feel like this hour and a half plus was a waste of time.
Good. Well, next, let's just keep going with this. So Quick Ball is next, which is the... what's it set from Fusion Strike. This is when tournaments picked back up.
Thank goodness. I missed them.
Yes, so did I. You never went to... You only went to Worlds. You didn't go to these tournaments.
Gonna need more hairspray. He's not done yet. It's windy's getting bad here.
A lot of people are wondering, were they just going to hand out the communications that would have been printed by that point? But they didn't. We got Quick Ball, and I believe North America was the only English language one for the Quick Ball. Because the European one was definitely in German, because it was back in Germany that year. And I think the tournament started after Latin America and Oceania would have had their tournaments. Obviously, they didn't. And that brings us to this year, where we again have a slightly different Ultra Ball. And 3 of them have the English language one. The Latin American one, still Portuguese. But as of now, the NAIC one only has the player version and doesn't have the stamped version. So that's it. I was going to say it's a concise history. It wasn't that concise. It was a very, very long history of all the Nationals and IC promos.
But please do take a look. All of you Spotify listeners, we're not on Spotify yet. All of you Apple iPod podcast listeners, we're not on Apple iPod podcast yet. For those of you like a Samsung because the phone bends, get one. It's up to you. But when you get a chance, glance at the videos in this section. If you move to this, you just table contents, timestamp this stuff, and enjoy the pictures, okay? A lot of them are from my own collection.
Yeah. Laura has told me she's going to make me buy a scanner soon so we can just scan some of the cards that we've got as opposed to her having to edit them from your photos.
Yeah, no problem. If you guys don't want me involved anymore, just let me know. I've been, extricated by so many people in my life at this point. It really doesn't mean anything else.
I'm just trying to make things easier for my wife.
All right.
Thanks. All right. You sound like Eeyore. Like no one
sound like what, Eeyore? Did you say Eeyore?
Yeah, you sound like Eeyore. He's like, it's okay. No one wants me around. No one likes David. Where's my tail?
Let me do my own impression, though. That's me. You do a good impression.
Okay. All right.
My God. This is the best day ever. I've lost 8 pounds. I've got a great tan. I learned a bunch of stuff from you. I'm going to find that damn card for you, that Venusaur, somehow. And we gave away something, the CyberX collection. We're doing another drawing with 151 as the number. People are going to, message me. And message more. I'm not going to tell you how many people are involved because it's not very many. So more people get involved. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell an enemy, tell a sibling, tell a parent, tell someone from outside of the hobby, and tell everyone you know from inside of the hobby, because this thing is just on the ground floor, folks. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah. And David did mention Spotify there. I did reply to someone else's comment about Spotify at some point this week. That is the end goal. I just have a few more things I want to work out and make some changes before we launch onto Spotify. But end goal is
Dan has to check the analytics and then recheck the analytics, then formula overly check, have an audit of the analytics, and once he decides that the analytics are good or not, redo exactly what happened the first time the analytics situation occurred.
It's not exactly that. I'm doing other stuff which will lead up to going on to Spotify at least. Anyway,
and if you missed Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if you missed it, the last segment, send a comment so I can tell Dan to stick it where the sun don't shine, okay?
Yeah, if you got from what he meant from that, where this is actually the ending today. We're not doing the fake Ferris Bueller ending and the true or false, because I knew we'd have had a lot to talk about today with NAIC and my Venusaur and all these promos, and I think we fulfilled that. We're close to 2 hours in recording time. But no one comments saying, "Oh, you're close to 2 hours in recording time. The podcast 1 hour 50. Where did our 10 minutes go?" Because I'll tell you where it went. It went with frozen video files. Is where it went.
Yeah, and I'll get you my rant next week. So now, Dan, are you ready to say goodbye?
I'm ready to say goodbye. You ready to say goodbye?
Yes, I'm gonna have you start, and then I'm gonna start ranting. Then just cut me off, okay?
Sure. Whatever. All right. Well, hopefully you guys did all enjoy. Follow us on the socials. Comment, message Dave on his Instagram with the number to try and win. And you know what? Oh no, I totally forgot. I was supposed to shout out a guy called Zach. A guy called Zach came up to me at NAIC and told me he enjoyed the podcast. I'm so sorry, Zach. I was going to do that during the comments, and then I got sidetracked. I think David was doing something or other, just annoying me. And again, at that point, I really hope I've got your name right, because this whole weekend was a blur to me and ended in a terrible way. So, Zach, I hope I've got your name right, and if I did, thank you for giving you some very kind words at NAIC in person. That was the last thing I had to do. That was the only thing I had to do. At least I didn't fully end without remembering to do it. Oh, my God. Oh,
all right, okay. Dan, say goodbye. I turned 62, everybody, and it's about time for me to rant about how I don't like getting any older, okay?
Yeah, you do that. I'm just going to end this here.
Listen up. When you guys get older, you're not going to want to hear about this, okay? It's not a good situation.
Thanks for listening to Koffee Talks with Dan Norton and David Person, featuring music by More Than Never and artwork by Laura Norton. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members. Join us again next time.
But they don't want you to